Good morning. Thank you for joining the webinar. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land I'm on today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to elders past and present and thank them for their continuing care of the land, waters and culture of this place. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of Western Sydney and the many First Nations clans that live, work and play there. I acknowledge we're all meeting on unceded lands of First Nations peoples. Always was, always will be. My name is Galina and I work for the Paul Ramsay Foundation. We're a philanthropic foundation that seeks to support people and places to thrive and to tackle the conditions that prevent that. The purpose of this session is to provide some information about the funding opportunity PRF announced last week and to give community organisations a chance to ask any questions you may have about the funding. We'll talk for about 15 minutes and then leave 45 minutes for Q&A. If questions occur to you while we're talking, please use the Q&A function, not the meeting chat, to post your questions. I'd now like to introduce Liz Yeo, PRF's Chief Alliances Officer, to speak about the value of supporting networks. Liz, over to you.
Thanks, Galina, and hi, everyone. It is fantastic to see so many of you coming into this online webinar. Really appreciate you making the time to join us. My name's Liz Yeo. I'm the Chief Alliances Officer here at PRF. But prior to this, I had one of my dream jobs in my career, which was to lead a neighbourhood centre in my own community in Newtown. And the thing I just wanted to reflect on in us launching this particular grant round is how excited I am about this opportunity to be able to back people in their place to work in networks, to work together to shift the kinds of things you want to shift in your community. And just to make it a bit concrete, I just wanted to share really briefly how in my own experience that would have been really useful. One of the things in my community at the time I was there in Newtown that people were really concerned about was the growing numbers of people, unfortunately, experiencing homelessness in our community. Now, we were a funded service to provide a program that was specifically supporting people in boarding houses, a case management service. But as I know you will understand, being in community, there's so much more to these challenges than just providing case management. And the only way we were able to have a real chance at tackling an issue that concerned us in our community was to actually bring the people together who could do something about this from their different roles and their different organisations and their different perspectives. So the only way we could tackle this was by obviously talking firstly to people actually experiencing homelessness, engaging our own community members who were concerned about it, but also working as a network across the local councils, the local police, the local health service, the local pubs and venues, all of the local businesses that were also concerned around this issue. But no one, of course, usually funds that. That's work that we all have to bring our own, we have to cobble together something, our own time, our own energy to do those kinds of things, to bring those networks together. So I just wanted to share that because I'm really excited that this is an opportunity in your community for us to help back some of those networks that exist to address whatever your particular challenges are. So again, thanks for joining us, and I hope you find this morning's session really useful.
Thanks very much, Liz, and thanks for that fabulous example that shows the value of working in a network. PRF has a long-standing commitment to Mt Druitt. It dates back to 2019, and this means we've got relationships with several organisations located there. Our board also visited Blacktown and Mt Druitt earlier this year and met with local leaders and heard about the strengths of the community as well as the systematic barriers preventing thriving. PRF has a new strategy launched earlier this year, and as part of that, we have a stronger focus on place. We saw a good opportunity to try our new approach in a metropolitan area that's not far from where PRF is based. As many of you would know, we've spent the past few months talking to people who live and work in Mt Druitt and surrounds to increase our understanding of what's going on in the area. This has helped shape the funding opportunity we're now promoting. We're grateful for the generosity of those we spoke to, and we really look forward to connecting with organisations we haven't met yet. We recognise the unique barriers and opportunities that communities in Mt Druitt face. We also know that communities hold the history of what's worked and what hasn't worked and what the solutions are. We're committed to working collaboratively with Mt Druitt communities to address their priority issues. We're pleased to announce a grant round focused on supporting existing networks in Mt Druitt with a view to improving outcomes for communities living there. We believe, as Liz said, that strong community networks are necessary for places to imagine and lead their own futures. We're particularly interested in networks that are supporting children, young people and families in the northern part of Mt Druitt. We're seeking to improve access to and distribution of resources, including financial resources, within the 2770 postcode, ensuring they reach those most in need. We want to help strengthen the efficacy of local organisations and initiatives, and we want to contribute to shifting the narrative about Mt Druitt to one that reflects the many local strengths and leadership. This grant round will support networked initiatives that focus on promoting social connection, community empowerment and positive change. We're looking to support existing networks that involve collaboration between 3 or more organisations. Networks can include a wide range of stakeholders, including community organisations, government agencies, businesses and local resident groups. This approach will allow us to support local work that's already addressing the underlying systemic issues hindering progress. It will also allow us to support the combined knowledge and resources across different stakeholders to develop innovative and effective solutions. It will hopefully also strengthen community capacity to drive sustainable change by supporting local leaders, organisations and initiatives. We invite you to submit funding proposals for projects that align with our vision and contribute to the ongoing development and wellbeing of the Mt Druitt community. My colleague Tanya will now talk in more detail about the processes and assessment criteria for the open grant round. Thanks, Tanya.
Thanks, Galina. Hi, everyone. My name is Tanya. I'm also part of the team that is running this grant round here. So I'll talk about what our firm criteria are and then what some of our more flexible criteria are. I encourage anyone thinking of applying to first read thoroughly grant guidelines and the FAQs document that's on our website, as indicated by these red arrows, where you will also find these criteria. So in terms of our eligibility criteria, these are: we require that your network supports children, families, and or young people who live in the priority suburbs, which are Lethbridge Park, Tregear, Wilmot, Shalvey, Bidwell, Havisham, Edmonton, Blackett, and Darrock. We require at least one member of the network to have their head office or main base within the 2770 postcode. We also require that your network has at least 3 members. Less than 3 members would not be considered a network per se, it would be more of a partnership. And if you are mainly supporting First Nations or culturally and linguistically diverse people, then the majority of members in your network must be First Nations or CALD-led. We require for your network to be an already established network, meaning you must have been working together on projects or issues for at least 6 months and also have some evidence to show that. And lastly, we do require that one member can receive charitable funds. So they must be registered with the Australian Charities and Not-for-Profits Commission, which is the ACNC. So those are the must-have criteria. And then in terms of further prioritization, we would prioritize networks whose objectives align closely with our outcomes here at PRF, which are on the slide. We'd also prioritize networks with strong community ties. So the extent to which community is engaged in the work and the decision-making is an important consideration. We will look for the clear need of your network. So what resource or activity is it that you need to improve your connectedness or your strength or your outcomes? I'll pass back to Galina now to provide some more detail around the types of activities that we would and wouldn't expect to fund.
Thanks very much, Tanya. On the slide behind me, you can see a list of what we will and won't fund, but this list is also in the frequently asked questions document on our website. I'd just like to share one example of something that we might be likely to fund. So imagine a local business is leading a collaborative network initiative to promote a more positive narrative about the area and its community. The network is seeking funding to collaborate with a local journalist who can craft compelling narratives that showcase the community's unique qualities and resilience, challenging negative stereotypes and fostering a more positive public perception. The network is comprised of diverse stakeholders, including ACNC registered non-profit organisations, local businesses, the local Chamber of Commerce, council, school representatives and community groups, all working collectively to challenge negative perceptions and shift the narrative about the area to a more positive one. In this example, although the business is leading the network, it could not be the funds holder. Another network member that is ACNC registered would need to receive the funds. I'll now pass back to Tanya to go through the process that we envisage for the open grant round.
Thanks, Galina. So this funding round will have 3 stages. We opened the first stage last week on the 14th of October, and we're inviting any interested networks now to register an expression of interest with us via our online portal, which you can see the button there on our website at the bottom. So this expression of interest involves you completing an eligibility checklist and then telling us a bit about your network. You will also have to upload some evidence of your previous work together in this step. This form will close on the 8th of November. So as you can see on our website, there's a button. You click that, you'll be taken to our grantee portal where you can create a login and complete this first step. Only one member needs to complete this step on behalf of the network, and only one login can be used to actually access and edit this form. If you have any issues with this step or you aren't sure how to answer the question, or even if you want to check your eligibility, you can contact us via the email that is also on our website, which is 2770@prf.au, and one of us will get back to you very quickly to help you out with that. After the 8th of November, we will review and shortlist the networks who we are interested in progressing. We will contact them on the 15th of November and send them a link to complete a more detailed application. This is the next stage of the process, stage 2, and this will also be via the same grantee portal. You can use the same login for this step, although you may create multiple logins from different organizations if you wish to work on the application together. If written applications are not your strong suit and you prefer to speak with us, you can make an appointment and one of the team will spend time with you and assist you in filling out the application. If you need translation services at this point as well, let us know and we can organize that. So this is stage 2 will be open from 18th November to 13th December. And then we sort of go into the year-end break and we'll be back in touch with you from the 13th of January to let applicants know of the outcome. At this stage, we expect to be pretty close to finalizing the successful networks, but the final step will be to meet the networks for an in-person interview. We understand that January is a tricky time with people being on leave, but we'd appreciate having at least one representative from each network member present for the interview. This period will extend into the first week of Feb. And those are the 3 application stages. And then on our end, in February and March, we'll be getting approvals done for the successful networks. April and May, we'll be able to draw up the agreements with the grantees. And that would be primarily done with the organization that is the ACNC registered charity. So following this timeline, successful networks can expect to receive some funding by June and July, so essentially next financial year. That's the end of our presentation, so we can open up now to audience questions using the Q&A function or the meeting chat.
I think we have one question already. The first question is, can the 2770 based member be a residential address? And the answer to that is yes. If it's an established community group, that's totally fine. Any other questions coming through? Okay, there's a question, how many network projects are you funding? Well, that's a bit of an open question at this point. We're going to wait and see what we receive in terms of applications because we haven't done this before, but we'll be funding several is the answer. Thank you. Another question that's come through is this just for one particular network? I think that question might mean, are we just funding one network or are we only funding one type of network? And the answer is no, we're funding more than one network and we are agnostic about the type of network. We want to see what the community thinks is important.
If we put the activity slide up again, we can.
Okay. There are some other questions. I can answer them. We've got another question. Can an appointment for a face-to-face meeting regarding help with the application be made for the EOI or only for stage 2, the more detailed application? Do you want to answer that, Tanya?
Yeah, I can answer that. We are doing the face-to-face support for the detailed application. If you look at the FAQ document on our website, it goes through the specific application questions for each stage, and you'll see that the EOI stage is just really one general question, which we don't imagine to be too strenuous. But having said that, we do have the support email on our website. If you would like one of us to call you and help you out with stage 1, that's available as well.
Okay, there's another question here that is, does the member that actually applies, the login holder, need to be a registered charity or can another partner apply? Tanya?
No, the applicant member, the one filling out the application, doesn't need to be ACNC registered. It would be more important that the funded member is the ACNC registered member.
Okay, we've had a question here around expanding the types of service delivery which funds cannot be spent on. Essentially, we're not wanting to fund programs. So if an organisation was looking to support the expansion of the number of places in a program to expand the reach of a program, that's not something we would support. We would support a group of organisations working together to benefit a group of beneficiaries. But yes, it would be for the network activities rather than for the actual delivery of the service. Hopefully that's helpful. Okay, here's one for you, Tanya. What kind of upload would show evidence of previous work together? Can you give some examples?
Yep. So if you worked on, say, an event together, then any pictures or invites or social media, anything like that. If you've worked on a specific issue or project, any report that was done, any shared advocacy materials that you might have produced together, even just things like, terms of reference or the way that, anything that sets out the way that your network might communicate or collaborate together. It's not a set list. If you've got other ideas of, good examples that you could share with us, let us know. And there's also a space for you to describe what that evidence is in the upload. Those are just some of the ones that we thought might be common, but yeah.
I've got an interesting question here. What does facilitation of collaboration or partnership mean? So that's an activity that can be funded if you look at the slide. And I'd just like to go back to Liz's excellent story about the network in Newtown. Liz's point was that everybody had to do that work apart from the work that they were already doing in their day job. So facilitation of collaboration or partnerships might be a person to actually run the network, a time-limited position that would, get people together, sort the meeting room, take the minutes, follow up with the actions, that kind of thing. So that we really understand that that's not usually funded, as Liz said in her example, and so that we see that as something very, very much within the scope of this funding. Okay. There's one that says, can the ACNC registered partner be an intermediary organisation, i.e. an organisation whom you auspice donations through? I think I'm not quite sure of the answer to that one. I would have thought that they could be, but I think, and we would absolutely support micro grants. Micro grants would need to go to local organisations. But I think that probably would be, we just need to chat a bit more about that example. So please get in touch. There's a question here about can a face-to-face appointment meeting regarding help with the application be made for the EOI or only for stage 2, the more detailed application? Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, we did that on, I think, Galina.
Oh yeah, okay. Yep.
Yeah, so yeah, do reach out if you need help with either stage.
We've had a question, can the funding be used for staffing? And yes, it can, but it's time-limited roles. They would not be guaranteed of any funding beyond the 3 years of this grant funding.
Got a question. Our head office is in Blacktown, but we have an established office in Mt Druitt, and the network is in Mt Druitt. Will this matter? I think the if you can show your ties to the local community in different ways, then definitely interested to hear more about that. Ideally, one network member is firmly based in Mt Druitt. But I think if you've got your head office in Mt Druitt and you've got also another office your head office in Blacktown and another office in Mt Druitt, still definitely worth, I think, exploring this funding.
We have a question around food justice. With food justice a persistent challenge in the community, could the labour material costs of collaborative food security initiatives be funded? I mean, I think the answer is potentially yes, but we'd probably want to have a bit more of a chat about that. But agree that that is an issue. And again, in line with what we've previously said, the support would be for the network and it would support time-limited roles. Got a question about will you be giving consideration to smaller charities, as many of the grants in 2770 go to larger, well-established organisations? I'd say that is one of the key things about this grant round, is that we're really seeking to put resources in the hands of communities. And while we acknowledge that there's a lot of organisations based outside Mt Druitt who are doing great work and absolutely are likely to be part of many networks, I think we will really be looking for locally based organisations as a high priority. Any others?
But if a member is part of more than one network who applies for funds, is this likely to be looked upon well, or might this be seen as double dipping? I think it's fine to be involved in multiple networks. I don't think that would be viewed in any type of way. It's just important to know that in every network, the organization that's funded in that network cannot be the same organization that's funded in another network. So you could be in two networks, but you'd only be able to be that funded member in one of them.
We've had a question around why is service delivery not included in the funding? That's a great question and something that we come across a lot in philanthropy. As philanthropists, we really try not to duplicate what government does, and we see service delivery as the role of government. What we try and fund is things that government might not fund, things that we've observed in our experience are regularly not funded. So we try to complement what government does. And our hunch is that if we strengthen networks, then service delivery may be more successful and there may be better outcomes for communities. But that was something we'll be having a look at as we go through this project. Thanks for the question.
We've got one question, noting that research activities are funded, but pilot programs cannot be funded. Where would a pilot research project fit? I think it would fit more in the can fund list. I think when we said pilot programs, we again were referring to service delivery more so. But if you as a network have a great idea that you've been wanting to do for a while around research or advocacy, and now's the time to do it, then I think that's good, that's fine.
Thanks, Tanya. We've got another question here. Does the first round require info about the project itself or just the network applying?
Just the network, yeah. So the first round is just all about the network. The project itself is something that we dig into in stage 2. And again, if you want to see the application questions and also the assessment criteria that we'll be using, you can find them in the FAQ document on the website. This question, Galina, we can maybe answer together. Given funding is over 3 years, can network activities be staged and ramped up over the years, like community of practice activities year 1 and 2 and advocacy activities with that information and momentum in year 3?
I think that's perfectly fine. Yes, yeah. I think that would be very much the way we would do it. As you'll see on the FAQs, the funding we anticipate not being given in one lump sum. It'll be funded over the 3 years. So that would be the only caveat that I can see, but I think that sounds like a good idea. There's a question here. Is there any advice around choosing within our network which organisation is the lead?
When you say lead, you mean
the lead applicant or funded member, or does it not matter?
No, I think whoever has the capacity should apply and hold the pen. And same with whoever's best placed to sort of receive and expend the funds. We would like to see that every network member has a purpose and a role, and receiving the funds or submitting the application wouldn't have any special status or leadership in our minds. So it's really just a discussion amongst yourselves.
There's one here, can telling positive stories involve podcasts or filmmaking projects? I would say yes, but the funding is not for the project itself. The funding is to support the network. So if it would be important to be able to demonstrate that the project is being driven by a group of organisations and not just one. Anything you'd add to that?
This question is, can you tell us more about what you mean by brokerage? So I think brokerage is referring to the cost of the incidental cost that might come up when you're supporting families, children, or young people. It could be things around transport or various other living costs.
Could be the cost of covering events, that kind of thing. Could be, yes, for renting out a space to do some workshops, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's the kind of thing. There's a question here about whether funding can be used across a shorter time period. Yes, it can. You can absolutely apply for less funding and over a shorter time period. So very much depends on the project. We've got a question here. Can the community co-design be related to future infrastructure?
Good question.
I think it could be. So. I think it could be. I mean, I think the expectation, it just needs to be clear that the funding isn't guaranteed beyond the 3 years. So if the community co-design came up with a master plan or something like that, there is no guarantee that there would be funding from the Paul Ramsay Foundation to support the implementation of that. But I think absolutely could be a good use of the funds. Checking to see if there are any other questions. I think. Oh. Following on from the staged, ramped up approach question, is there opportunities to then update what we want to use the funding for throughout the 3-year period? If new priorities for the network and community come to light in the early co-design stage, absolutely, it's completely fine. We expect that to happen, but things change over time.
Yeah, we probably have a bit of process involved in, if the grant purpose was to change from the start of the grant over the 3-year period. There may be some paperwork involved in that as well, but we're definitely open and understand that, things change and shift, and we'd be very interested to stay across that.
There's a question. Implicit to this funding is community-led development and advocacy. It would be great if there was another webinar around these topics to help network strategy applications. We can certainly consider that. Probably we would like maybe a bit more information about that request, and very happy if you want to put an inquiry through to the 2770@prf.au. There's a question here, Tanya. We have multiple partners within the area in the same field, but the connection is primarily between us and our partner, with less connection between our partners. Does that meet the definition of a network?
It sounds like maybe you have a strong partnership with, there's 2 organizations there, and then maybe less strong relationships with several other, if I'm understanding correctly. For this purpose, it probably wouldn't be considered a network as such, because as we say, we want minimum 3 organizations that all have ties with each other, and a clear role in the network and a shared purpose. So yeah.
Okay, here's another question. Could capability supports be developing the skills of network members and their staff in working with children and families?
So training, like workforce training.
Yeah.
I would say probably that's not a network activity for this funding. Do you agree?
Agree. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think if there's a way that that could be shown to be networked, then maybe we would consider it, but otherwise it feels more like individual organisation capacity uplift. There's a question, do all the orgs in a network need to be local, or can orgs working in the area but not necessarily based here be included? And the answer is no. Not all orgs in the network need to be local, and absolutely orgs not based in the area but working in the area can be part of the network. They can't be a fund holder though. The fund holder, they can be a fund holder.
Yeah, we just need at least one network member to be headquartered in that.
We have a question here. Can you confirm that service delivery includes the cost of human resources? I'm not quite sure that. I mean, it could mean a couple of different things. One is the cost of the staffing costs to employ someone, and yes, definitely. And it could be, I guess, the costs associated with hiring people. Again, we'd probably need to get an email just with a little bit more detail about that one.
Yeah. Question here. Can you pass on the contacts of organizations in this meeting? We're keen to start some advocacy activities and we can work with like-minded organizations. That sounds like a nice idea. I think maybe what we could do after this is send an email to just check that people would be comfortable with that. But yeah, we can follow up with that.
Yeah. There's a question here about, is the theory of change behind this funding based on the collective impact framework? And if so, are there information resources you would recommend we look at? I think the answer is no. I think collective impact is one model of the way in which you might do change at the community level. I think there are others as well. And so I think really it's about what's your network doing and how is it supporting the children, young people and families of the Mt Druitt area, particularly those northern suburbs, together. So I think it's more about looking at the network and how it's working than looking at a particular framework or philosophy. Any further questions? Looks like we might be out of questions. We really appreciate your time in joining this webinar. We really encourage you to reach out to through the email address, and someone will call you back to chat to you about your question. Really encourage you to have a look at our website, have a look at the frequently asked questions document and the guidelines, maybe before you give us a call. And we really look forward to seeing what comes out of this networked approach. So thank you very much for your time, and we will make a copy of this recording available on the website. So keep an eye out for that. All right. Thanks very much, everybody, and have a great week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.